I wanted today's video to be lighthearted and for kids. So let's talk about death. What's up, Flick fans? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 predictions, and the reason why I'm doing this is because I genuinely believe someone's gonna die. Obviously, we could speculate on a lot. What role does the villain have in this movie? Are we diving into Rocket's backstory? But it looks like Death is going to meet a few of our characters, and in today's video, I'm going to give you the odds.
Never tell me the odds.
On who's not likely to die, who's more likely to die, and we're going to go in order and start with who I believe is least likely to die, and I'm talking 10 characters. Most of them are Guardians, and then, of course, I'm including Adam Warlock because he's new. He could be good down the line. Also, if you're here and you want to support this channel, you want to drop a thumbs up, that'd be great. If you don't, that's fine too. And at the bottom is Adam Warlock, played by Will Poulter. Why would he die? They're not just going to bring in this character, set him up for something really cool in the future, and then take him out. I'm also hearing that maybe he's not in the movie as much as some people are going to want him to be, and that's not because he is introduced and then they immediately kill him off. At least I hope, but I give that genuinely a very minor chance. I think he's going to come in, you're going to get teased, and then you're going to want him down the line.
That's what she said.
When it comes to Adam Warlock dying, I give him a 5% chance of death, which is basically nothing, but James Gunn, he may want to go out with a bang. Next up, it's Groot. This version of Groot, not the first version, which did die in the first movie. Gunn has said it multiple times. This is a brand new Groot. When a tree dies, a new branch may sprout and create another tree, but that's what it is. It's another tree, and that's what this version of Groot is. So because we've already done this once, and I'm already speculating that another really cute character dies, are we really going to do this again? If we do, I'm going to be devastated, but I just don't think Gunn is going to plan that way. I believe it would resonate more so if maybe Groot's best friend dies, and Groot has to suffer that loss because we've already seen the opposite side of it when Groot died in Avengers Infinity War. Oh, so Groot has died twice now. Yeah, he's not dying another time.
The show goes on!
When it comes to Groot's death, once again, I'm going to go 5%. It's just not happening. Maria Bakalova voices Cosmo the Super Dog. This is a character that has been teased and technically introduced already, but we're going to get a lot more of Cosmo in this movie. And I don't know if Cosmo is specifically a part of the Guardians of the Galaxy, but it looks like that's going to be the case. You're not going to kill off a dog, are you, James Gunn? You wouldn't do that, would you? If you're talking devastation, sadness, and pain. If James Gunn really wants to go out with a bang, that may be the ultimate way to do it. Look, I love these other characters, but you can't do the whole dog thing. I mean, you did the dog thing in the first John Wick, and I was completely devastated, and it took numerous deaths for me to even start to get over that. Also, again, kind of being a new character, I would like to see what we get from Cosmo in the future. I think this could be interesting. So when it comes to Cosmo, it could cause a ruckus, but I'm still just going 10%, but I just don't think it's happening. Now, here's one that I'm slightly struggling with. I felt like there were opportunities in the past to kill Nebula, and we have a character that has been growing a lot as we've progressed through this universe. Admittedly so, I didn't really like Nebula in the first Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm like, I just don't know if this character works. But the more we learn about her lately, starting with really Volume 2, but for the most part, the way she was handled in the Avengers movies, I really like this character. And I think this is the type of character that's been through so much trauma. To kill her off at this point, I guess, would raise the stakes drastically for the characters involved with her, for her, essentially her brothers and sisters. And Star-Lord would obviously be devastated. Past Gamora would be devastated. That would be an interesting thing to showcase. So I do think it has a bit more of a possibility, but I'm still only going 15% for Nebula. It just feels like this character has a role in the future of this universe, even if it's not going to be in this version of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And almost the same case for Past Gamora. My only hesitation with her meeting her doom in this movie is the fact that we've already seen it. Now, James Gunn did not get to handle that death in Avengers Infinity War. That was the Russo brothers. So maybe Gunn says, well, I want to kill her off. So what version do we have? The 2014 version. Let's kill her off. But as an audience member, as a viewer, do I want to see Gamora die again? Not necessarily. I mean, maybe this is a character that finds a way to go back to her timeline in her, at this point, multiverse, and we see adventures down the line, but it just came out that Zoe Saldana said this is it for the character, and I believe it. She said she signed up for one movie and it turned into 10. So I just don't think Gamora is going to be back after this movie. That's the only thing keeping me from saying, well, she's not dead. But even then, I think Gunn finds a way to send her back to her timeline or just send her off to where we don't really ever have to hear from her again. And I don't think we're going to see the same character die twice. That was how I was feeling with Groot, and that's how I'm feeling again with past Gamora, although I will raise it to 20% because, Gunn, he's like, I'm a DC guy. Let's just kill them all. Star-Lord. This one's interesting. How do you kill Star-Lord? I mean, this is a character whose journey and whose arc has kind of been building up to this movie, but I felt like a good opportunity to do that would have been the second film, but obviously they're not going to do that. They chose to go the Yondu route, and his role in the Avengers movies was massive, and it's not like you want to lose a big star in Chris Pratt. Now, granted, they did that with Chris Evans. They did that with Robert Downey Jr. But Pratt's only been in the universe since 2014, and I just think that marketability is something that they're not going to want to lose, even though this version of the Guardians team will be no more at the end of this movie. So when it comes to Star-Lord, I think it would be a great opportunity to land an emotional punch in a movie like this. And we've seen clips in the trailers where they're carrying Star-Lord around, and I'm like, oh, he could... No. Would they do it? No. Would they do it?
I don't know.
Even then, this is one that I think could surprise me, but I just don't think they pull the trigger on this move. I'm going a 25% chance of death for Star-Lord. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I'm not betting on it. Mantis. Palm Clementov is really, really good in this role. That being said, I think Mantis is one of those characters that has been introduced. There's a little bit of an arc to her that will continue in this film because now Star-Lord knows, and this is a spoiler for the Christmas special, but it's been out long enough, and it's only 40 minutes. You've watched it by now. If you haven't watched it, tune away, and you're gone. She is Star-Lord's sister. I mean, I guess that was kind of obvious, but we never really looked at it that way. But yeah, she's Star-Lord's sister, and I think that could give Star-Lord a lot to scream about. We see that one scene in the trailer where he's screaming and crying, and I think that's Rocket personally, but it wouldn't shock me if that was Mantis. It wouldn't surprise me if we saw some really sad moments with her character in this movie because they introduced that plot point of her being Star-Lord's sister. I'm thinking, that would be a good character to bite the dust in this movie for everyone else to get really emotional about, especially Drax, even though part of me thinks that Drax dies before Mantis dies in this movie. Regardless, I'm still going a 40% chance. I'm not feeling like it's overly possible because I think that would be a great character to have come back in the future, and I think it's not a large enough character to have that devastation like you will some other characters, but if James Gunn's going all out in this movie, Mantis could be one that bites the dust. I know I keep saying bites the dust, but I love that song. Kraglin. A character that, first of all, is very close to James Gunn. His brother obviously plays this character. Somebody that I think the audience has grown to love, but not immediately someone that we think of when we think of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And my reasoning for putting him a little higher on this list than I was going to originally is thinking back to the trailers and the clips and everything we've seen so far, I'm not seeing a lot of Kraglin. Now, that may be a swerve. Kraglin may be on his own little adventure in this movie. But the more I think about the possibility of Kraglin dying, the more I'm kind of like, oh no. This is one that I believe genuinely could be a possibility. Now, I still think it's more likely that he doesn't die because he's not necessarily a big enough character to have that emotional impact, and it could be someone down the line that could be part of this new Guardians of the Galaxy team. But you also have to think about it this way. James Gunn kind of knew he wouldn't be back for another Marvel movie, even though this was before he signed the whole DC thing. He knew that this was his last one. So why would his brother want to come back? And that's what's making me kind of like, oh, Kraglin genuinely has a chance to die in this movie. I'm still going 45%. I'm not guessing that Kraglin is going to die, but this is one that if you're gambling, and don't gamble, kids. But for this experiment, for betting purposes, I'd put a little money on this, right? Again, only 45%, but if that hits, you're going to win. You're going to win a pretty good amount of cash. So I think it's possible that Kraglin meets his maker, but I think it's a little more possible that he is part of that remaining team when the movie's all said and done. Here's where the odds get kind of crazy. These are the only two characters that I genuinely think are going to die in this movie, which is why I have the odds fairly high for these two. A drastic difference between the last character that we talked about and this one. And the first one, though, is Drax. I know most people would have Drax at number one because Dave Bautista said, well, I'm done with the character, I'm not coming back. And I believe that. I believe Dave Bautista is done with the character. But because you're done with the character, it doesn't necessarily mean that the character is going to die. It could mean that Drax goes off on his own adventure and is no longer with the Guardians because he's found his own way, and this is me just babbling nonsense because I don't believe this is going to happen. It's basically my only rationale for putting Drax below Rocket. I genuinely believe Drax is dying in this movie, and I believe it so heavily that I'm going to a 75% chance that Drax dies in this movie. I genuinely believe everything has set up to this point for Drax to go back and meet his family once more. His wife and his daughter that has been talked about numerous times. I hope Drax gets an awesome scene in this film where he just gets to take people on and finally gets to show how powerful he truly is. That's what we've been missing from his character. And honestly, you listen to interviews, I think that's what he has been missing from this character. And I believe we're going to see that in this film. I love Drax as a character. I'm going to be devastated when it happens, but I think the odds are ridiculously high. And I'm kind of banking on Drax. I'm trying to get myself mentally prepared. Maybe in my heart, I don't want this to happen, but I'm trying to get myself prepared for Drax to die again. I don't know anything, but I think I know that this is happening. My only hesitation for going all in on my number one and saying this is locked in, we're gonna go 95%, is that it feels like this is James Gunn swerving. It feels like it's James Gunn saying, you know what? We're not going to do this because it's so obvious that we're going to do it, and every piece of marketing, every trailer has set it up to that point. I mean, my God, the main villain of the movie is the villain that created Rocket Raccoon in the comics, and that scene that just came out, that clip with Rocket and the other animal friends, oh boy, I watched that and I'm like, well, Rocket's dead. And here's my brain fighting against that. I think it's easy to get Bradley Cooper back because all he has to do is go in a studio and go in a booth and record his voice. It's easy. It's not like the actor's going to go anywhere. And then you also had the fact that Rocket's just a great character, man. And to see Rocket go out like this is going to tear us all apart and rip our hearts to shreds. And you know, it's going to be nice to see the other side of it, characters actually being sad because Rocket died, because we've seen Rocket being sad that Groot died, and then Rocket being sad that the Guardians died in Infinity War, and this character has went through a lot, but for me, everything is pointing to and building to and making it super obvious that Rocket's going to die in this movie, and my only hesitation is, I think James Gunn may be swerving us. That being said, I'm going at 85% that Rocket is dead in this movie. I think Drax is dead. I think Rocket's dead. Kraglin could be the only other one where I'm like, are they going to actually commit to that? Now, the Gunn could go all out. I could be really wrong, and I think that's the fun of this video, is you guys come back, because in the spoiler review that I do for Guardians, we're going to talk about this. But this doesn't work. It's not a one-way street. It's a two-way street. I need you guys to leave your comments. Every single comment is going to make a difference on this video, and the ones that I like the most, I'm going to showcase during my spoiler review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and I think that's going to be a really fun discussion when we talk spoilers for this movie. But my spoiler-free review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is coming on Friday, so you don't want to miss that. Those are my thoughts. That's my list. That's my ranking. How would you rank them? Thanks so much for joining this video, and I'll be back tomorrow with another review for a brand new series coming to Amazon Prime.